Coming up on College Press Box, the Texas men's basketball team tries to catch up with the competition after losing 2 straight, while the Texas softball and baseball teams dominate their competition this past weekend. Good evening and welcome to this edition of College Press Box. I am your one and only host, Julien Owens, and we have a great show for you tonight. I hope everybody is trying to get warmer as the cold front has came through this weekend. And speaking of cold, the Texas men's basketball team went on a very cold streak and falling in Big 12 standings and is now unranked in AP's top 25 poll. After losing 2 straight on the road, the Longhorns look to come back at home and get a big win against Baylor. After winning the first matchup, Longhorns look to go 2-0 in the series and start the week off on a good note. Let's head to Frank Irwin Center for the highlights. And as you see, the team is just warming up to get ready to play against Baylor. And early in the first half, Isaiah Taylor will throw it straight to Jonathan Holmes for a bounce-in 3, which gives Texas the lead 3-2. Moments later, Texas up by 1. Javon Felix will go in, give it to Cam Ridley, and he'll bounce up for a layup for 1. Texas will go up by 4 in the game. Now Texas up by 7. They'll pass it up straight to Prince Ebay, and he would get blocked. And that's how it happened with them. And Oklahoma will come in with a straight 3. Texas will still have the lead up to 4. Texas fans are going wild as the game is up 47-27 at the end of the first half. Cameron Ridley with the dunk will go in and extend the lead to 12. Then Isaiah Taylor, you see he does his move work, gets it in, and gets a little curve up into the hand. You got 40 seconds left. Texas will have the final 74-69 against Baylor. College Press's own Joshua Blunt went to the drum this past Wednesday and to get on the extra coverage to win against Baylor.
After drowning in a sea of doubt after back-to-back Big 12 losses, the Longhorns' victory against Baylor has restored life among the team.
I think it's a big game because of the way we've played. You know, we haven't given ourselves a chance in 2 games. And I don't think we have mentally done the details the last couple of weeks. And I think it shows up when things aren't going perfectly well tonight. We did a good job when they pushed back, and we had to come down and execute. At the end, we did.
It's definitely a good win for us. Definitely what we needed.
Although the Longhorn ship reached the port of victory, it wasn't the easiest trip for the Horns, as at times, skies loomed gray. But Cameron Ridley steadied the ship for the Horns with his dominating presence and physical play.
He does a great job getting position and scoring with angles. Very similar to Dexter Pittman.
Really set a tone for us going in there, and our guards did obviously a nice job of throwing the ball in there. We had talked so much about it because we didn't do anything that we wanted to get done in Lawrence.
I wanted to come in the game more aggressive than I've been in the past games. And this week, Coach Barnes has been stressing to the guards to play inside out. So I had all the guards looking for me early in the game. And, I just went up aggressive as I can, and just turned out I had a really good night.
While Ridley's performance was the lighthouse that guided the Longhorns to safety, Texas knows there can be no holes in their sails in order to reach their full potential.
Well, that's what we talked to our guys back last night, that, hey, we got to want to play a lot of basketball. You know, and we've proven it. We can beat people, and we've proven we don't play well, we can be embarrassed.
We got a lot of stuff to improve on, but we're headed in the right track right now.
Joshua Blunt, College Press Box.
After the big win against Baylor, Texas heads to Norman to face the Oklahoma Sooners in hopes of winning 2 straight. Let's head to Norman for the highlights. We're going straight into the second half. Jonathan Holmes would knock down the tray. Horns will be down by 4 after that. But OU's Isaiah Connor will go in and make his jumper good, which will have and puts Texas up by 7. Put OU up by 7. And then Prince Ebay would get a nice slam dunk to get the Hornets trying to claim back their lead. I'm trying to come back and get in the lead. 2 plays later, a great move ball by OU, and then they would get 2 3-pointers in this transition to just basically try to seal the game off for the Horns. And Cameron Liddy would also look up into the paint. They would get a smooth hookup, but Texas would still be down by 12. 45-33 OU. OU would get the rebound, and he'll just go it in for a quick jumper, which will give OU the lead up by 14. The next Horns possession, you just see the nice little DeMarcus to really hammer, still up by 12 points, and just more ball movement. Oklahoma couldn't stop Oklahoma would just get them with the threes, and then again, just Oklahoma with good ball movement, and they would lose the game to Oklahoma. Our first analyst tonight will be our very own Jeff Barker. Jeffrey, how are you doing this weekend?
Doing great, Julian. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm digging the one-man gig you got going on.
I know it's only one-man gig, but we'll have to go off that. But based off the play on the last 2 games, what do you think the Horns need to improve on in these final 2 conference games of the season?
Well, I think things to work on for Texas, first of all, need to improve defensively in every aspect. They continue to dominate on the boards and in the paint with Ridley, eBay, and Holmes. But in their last 4 games, they've allowed an average of 79 points. Sometimes I think they focus too much on owning the paint and don't focus enough on guarding the 3-point line. On Saturday, OU torched them from the outside, knocking down 10 threes and shooting 40% from beyond the arc. In addition, they need to improve on that transition defense. Second thing I think they need to improve on, limit the turnovers on offense, and then obviously force more on defense. Texas has lost the turnover battle in each of their last 8 games, so not good there. And lastly, I think they need to work on being more consistent on offense and not playing so streaky. In the last few losses on the road, there's been a few instances where Texas is within a few points of the lead, and then all of a sudden they'll go a few minutes, maybe 3, 4, even 5 minutes without scoring a single basket, and then find themselves down 10 to 15 points. Tough to come back from that on the road. If they can find a way to score more consistently, I think it'd really help them out, in some of these tough games on the road.
All right, Jeff. And after losing 3 of their last 4 games, the Horns will host TCU here this Wednesday, and they will play in Lubbock against Texas Tech this weekend also. Do you think the Horns will finish the season strong after winning home and on the road?
Yeah. So I think, you mentioned it. They got TCU, and then after that, they go and get Tech. TCU last in the conference, so I think they'll be completely fine with that. And then looking at Tech, got them on Saturday. I don't think Tech. They've lost 5 straight games, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem. But they have played some good teams. They even beat Oklahoma a few weeks ago. As long as Texas doesn't play down to the level of their competition, which we haven't seen them do too much this year, I think they'll be fine. They should be able to get those 2 wins going into the Big 12 tournament.
Speaking of the tournament, if they do well in the Big 12 tournament, how do you see the Longhorns facing in the NCAA tournament this season?
I think Texas can maybe win a game or 2 in the tournament, but ultimately I think they have too many glaring weaknesses offensively and defensively that they won't be able to solve between now and the NCAA tournament. They don't have a consistent score that can get them out of trouble when they start to struggle in these tough games. They also don't shoot well enough from the outside, with the exception of Felix, who's very streaky, though. Overall, I think they're just a little bit too one-dimensional for a serious tournament run. And for where Texas is going to be seated, it's probably going to be as high as 5 and as low as 8 or 9. I think they're going to have to beat too many good teams to even get in the Sweet 16, let alone get into the Elite 8, Final 4, or even have a shot at all of winning the title.
Well, I completely understand that, Jeff. Thank you for coming in for tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Now from the men's basketball to the women's basketball. The women's basketball team also lost 2 straight this past couple of weeks, and they went to get their matchup against TCU, looking to turn the tide and ending the season on the positive side of things. Let's head out to the drum for the highlights. As you see in the tip-off, Sierra Rodrigo would get the rebound, would get the jumper, and it'll be a turnover, 35 in the game. TCU possession, they'll try to go in, and they would they'll go and hit a jumper right here, which will get 2-0 the lead. Imani Mackey would stuff her dribbles in the paint, and then they would pass it off to Imaki, who would get the score. Texas will still be down 4-5. Then Cassie Fussell would hit the 3-pointer, where Texas would be up 12-8. And then again, Natalie would get up the score, TCU 14-12. But then not a good first half for the Horns. They're down 33-26 at the half. Also in the second half, Imani McGee-Stafford hits a jumper. Texas would trail 34-17 with Krista Henderson, who will come in and get her three-pointer with Texas up 39-37. Then a nice pass would get them straight into the paint, which would Texas up 51-44. Then Nakia Stafford makes the layup right here as she struggles to get the rebound. Texas would be up 53-46, and then McGee-Stafford would get in, would pass it up and get a jumper, which would be 55-46. And Texas would go on to win 62-50. College Press Box's own Luana Solis went on to the game and got some insight on the Longhorns win.
Texas stepped onto the court determined to break their 3-game losing streak by taking down the TCU Horned Frogs.
Really, really proud of this basketball team. Obviously, we were coming off of a tough week, and to me, this was a heart and gut check today. But I thought that our team came out of half and just decided that they were going to win the game on the defensive end, and really happy for them. I thought a lot of people stepped up tonight, a whole lot of people.
After struggling in the first half, Texas came back strong on the defensive side in the second half, scoring their largest rebound margin in conference play.
I will tell you what I thought the difference was tonight was them. It was them talking to each other. The leadership was terrific tonight. And I didn't hear any negativity or it was all positive. It was all about what they needed to do. I just think that they as a unit decided that they would win this thing as a team, and I think that's what they did.
Point guard Crystal Henderson played a key role in the team's success during the second half.
I think Crystal gives us a different look. Like, Selena's kind of timid. Crystal's just all about the braggadocious fight. And today, she just willed it on all of us. And I think you kind of take on the demeanor of your point guard. And she has that demeanor. We weren't used today. And I think everybody contributed. There was not one person that came in and just fell flat. Like, everyone just kept playing. And that was something Coach talked about at Iowa State. Our bench didn't produce, and that's something that we have to be better with, and we tried to do that today.
Luana Solis, College Press Box.
After a dominating win, Texas looks to finish the week 2-0 and travels to face Texas Tech. Let's head out to Lubbock for the highlights. When we come back, we'll have our second guest of the night to talk about women's basketball and take a look at what happened in the Houston Classic this past weekend. Stay tuned. Welcome back to College Press Box. We have our second analyst for the night to talk a little bit about women's basketball. College Press Box is Alex Wilkins. Alex, how are you doing this evening?
Hey, Julian, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well, Texas women's basketball had a bit of a losing streak, and then they won both games this past week. How important were these victories for the Longhorns?
Well, honestly, winning both those games was crucial for the Horns. They were just coming off a 3-game skid and really needed that, back-to-back wins, both Texas Tech and TCU. But they really needed that to help them regain their confidence. And really, we saw kind of before that a lapse in defense, and this really helped get their defense back to where it needed to be.
Well, clearly this has been a great week for the Horns. What do you think turned this team around this past couple of weeks?
Overall, honestly, I feel like Texas has really started playing like more of a team. We're seeing more of this cohesiveness that we really haven't seen in the past, especially defensively. We've seen an improvement majorly there. Also, of course, Nneka N'Paly is a major factor. She leads the Big 12 in rebounds, but also we've seen an improvement in Imani McGee-Stafford. Her scoring and her blocks have really helped improve this team and help them stay consistent.
Okay, well, this team has one more conference game tonight against Oklahoma State. What do you think they need to do to win this game?
Well, this Oklahoma State team is good. They're ranked 15th right now. And obviously, Texas is, their leading factor is the fact that they have such a strong defense. But unfortunately, Oklahoma State actually is the only team that's not beaten them, but out-rebounded them this season. And unfortunately, that could be their downfall tonight. So it really depends. They need to stay consistent with their defense, but also continue to dominate in the paint like we've seen in recent games. If they win tonight, they'll be the #3 seed in the Big 12 championship this weekend, so it's actually a very important game for the Horns.
And let's hope they win it. Thank you for coming in, Alex.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
From the Irwin Center to the Diamond, well, the Minute Maid Diamond, I should say, the Texas baseball team travels to Houston for the Houston Classic. The Texans look to prove that they were a better team than they were last year. Texas went on to Houston and dominated the competition, going 3-0 for the weekend. In their first matchup against Rice, Texas starting pitcher Dylan Peters tossed 8 shutout innings, while Tres Barrera and Ben Johnson had run-scoring doubles in the decisive 4th inning. Texas would win that game 2-0. Texas went on to defeat the Houston Cougars, the undefeated Houston Cougars, I should say, as pitcher Parker French allowed only 1 run in 7 innings with a score of 3-2, while Thornhill shut the door in the 9th inning. Texas concluded the weekend after defeating Sam Houston State 3-2. After trailing 2-0 in 6 innings, Texas earned their first 2 runs in the 7th with a game-winning sacrifice from Colin Shaw. Texas pitching as a whole only allowed 2 runs in the matchup, with Morgan Cooper finishing it off in the 9th inning to seal the win. Now we have our third analyst for the night, who is Reese Miller. Reese, let's just get right into it. After the Longhorns won the Houston College Classic this past weekend, what do you see that allowed Texas to prevail in this weekend?
Well, Julian, first off, it's great to join you. You know, you look a little lonely over there by yourself, but when I look at this past weekend, the first thing you have to start out with is how this team was able to come up in really the clutch ways. 4-1 this year in games decided by 2 runs or less. Under 500 in that same category a year ago. They actually moved up to number 10 in Baseball America's baseball rankings today for the first time since 2011, a top 10 team right here in Austin, Texas. But the thing that you take away from this weekend is guys starting to break out of their slumps a little bit. Casey Clemens started to come up big. Mark Payton is lighting the ball on fire, and Brooks Marlowe maintains that presence at the very top of the lineup. But first off, you have to concentrate on this starting staff. It's carried this team all season, and it will continue to carry this team throughout with a strong starting staff.
And I have to agree with you, Reese. If that starting staff isn't doing well, then the whole team isn't doing well. While it's still early in the season, what do Texas need to improve on the most right now as the season continues?
Well, it's sort of the same story of the last 2 seasons, is the lack of offensive production. Granted, they did go 4-0 this week, all in tough, low-scoring games, and they were able to get the clutch hits and the runs when they needed to. But at the same time, you're still seeing guys like Zane Gerwitz at the bottom of the lineup really struggling. Tres Barrera not been able to really get going. Casey Clemens has sort of started to turn around, but C.J. Hinojosa is sort of in a slump, even though he went 4 for 10 this weekend. And meanwhile, freshman Andy McGuire is still in a big-time slump, hitting under 150 for the season. And the catcher Jerry Montalbano also under the Mendoza line. So the bottom of the lineup really has to come up big for Texas if they want to make a run this season.
I couldn't agree with you more, Reese. Now, Dylan Peters was named Big 12 Pitcher of the Week. What does he bring to the table for the Texas starting staff?
Well, the junior lefty obviously brings a huge presence to the top of the rotation. He's going to go out there and give you 6, 7, 8 innings of solid baseball every time out. This past Friday against a tough Rice team that's also ranked in the top 25, he threw 8 shutout innings. He's a presence at the top of this starting staff, the Big 12 Pitcher of the Week, and named to the All-Conference tournament this past weekend. I look for him to be one of the best pitchers in the entire Big 12 this season and lead the Texas starting staff.
Okay, then. Well, thank you so much, Reese, for coming in. When we come back, we'll have our last analyst come in the studio to talk some softball updates and take a look at how the swimming team did this past weekend. Stay tuned. Welcome back to College Press Box. This past weekend, the struggling Texas softball team participated in the Texas Invitational. The first matchup was Friday against the University of Louisiana Monroe. In that game, 3 players from Texas collected 6 out of 10 hits for Texas. By the second inning, Texas led Monroe by 4-0. Texas would win their first game of the match 6-2. In their next matchup, they went to go against Southern Mississippi at 6:30 that evening. Just like their first game, Texas came out hot in the first 3 innings, leading after Lindsey Stevens hit a bunt single to give the score 5-0. After the Golden Eagles scored 2 runs, Texas answered with 2 more runs, with Stevens hitting a single in right field, which will send the win 10-2. Saturday, Texas continues to dominate the competition, starting with Texas Southern. Junior Gabby Smith shuts out Texas Southern, pitching a complete game while the offense stayed hot throughout the game. Sophomore Lindsey Stevens yet again continued to show that she's an impact for these Horns, going 2 for 3 in the matchup with a team high of 3 RBIs with a run. Texas won that matchup 8-0. In their second matchup on Saturday, they played again. Louisiana run roll in the rematch, scoring their first. Louisiana would score their first running, leading the matchup 1-0. But Texas would answer right back with Aaron Sherman's single with bases loaded to lead the game 2-1, and Texas did not stop there. After leading 7-1 in the matchup, Texas made sure the competition could not make a comeback after Stevens made a walk-off finish with a triple to end the game 9-1. Now, finishing the weekend, Texas looked to sweep in their third day and go undefeated. Texas would absolutely do so after beating Texas Southern 9-1 in 6 innings. Gabby Smith's performance helped aid the Longhorns with their third victory of the weekend, and the offense did not get off the throttle either this past Sunday, earning 12 hits in the matchup, 4 straight game where they hit 10 or more hits. Senior Manny Ogle had her 100th career hit, giving the Horns the lead in the 8th inning, 8-1. Senior Brigette Johnson ended the game with a walk-off sacrifice, which will give the final score 9-1. Now, for our last analyst for the night, we have our very own TSTV Sports Director, Jordan Cannon. Jordan, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good. It's kind of fun to be back in front of the camera versus behind the scenes now.
It's great to see you in front of the camera. Now, the Longhorn team played very well this past weekend. Are they doing anything special that struck to you this past weekend?
The biggest thing that stood out to me this weekend was definitely the strength of the batting order, specifically kind of the top 4 batters. Taylor Thom is 403, Brigette Washington 429, Lindsey Stevens is 446, and in the Texas Invite, she batted 706, going 12 for 17. So those 3 names that I just named went 10 for 12 on the weekend. They've obviously got a very strong presence at the home plate, and I think that is what's really carrying this team right now.
I couldn't agree with you more, Jordan. But also, I have to ask, is there a standout player for this hot Texas team coming out of this weekend, or is it just a team performance overall that's helping the Longhorns grow?
The standout player, in my opinion, is Gabby Smith because she is strong on both offense and defense. She's batting .353. She has a 2.06 ERA, and she's 8-1 in her pitching start. She has 6 complete games and 2 shutouts. And so, to me, Gabby Smith has the versatility to lead this team, and so I think she's definitely a standout player thus far in the season.
I couldn't agree with you more, Jordan. Is there any other part of this team that deserves some recognition after this weekend?
I think that the pitching was consistent. I wouldn't say outstanding. I wouldn't say terrible. I think it was very consistent. Obviously, they went 5-0 this weekend, but Tiara Davis had a .70 ERA in this Texas Invite. She was only 2.63 on the season. And then besides Gabby Smith, following her up, Holly Kern, a sophomore who has a 3.2 ERA. She's holding her own. Kern's another one of those that can also play at the plate. And Lauren Slatton, who you haven't seen much of this season because she got a 3.62, but she's getting in there. So I think pitching, that's the one thing I think Texas softball really needs to work on is their pitching, because there's no one right now that's really becoming a standout like they had last year with Blair Luna. But I think you could definitely see Tiara Davis step into that role, even Gabby Smith. So pitching is the biggest thing to work on, but overall this team is relatively solid, as we've seen the past 3 tournaments they've played in so far.
I couldn't agree with you more, Jordan. As soon as they get their pitching staff well improving before the real season kicks off, they'll be perfectly fine. Thank you for coming again for us, Jordan.
Thanks for having me, Julian.
Now we'll go from the diamond straight into the pool. Texas swimming teams look forward to the Big 12 championship this weekend in hopes of ending a productive season on high notes. We're going to go straight into the men's men's swimming. The number 8 men's team won their 35th consecutive conference championship, scoring 1,071 points against the competition, with the second place winner under 200 points. Freshman diver Mark Anderson finished the weekend winning the first Big 12 title. Anderson claimed the event with his 400-plus points, with the competition planned well over 100. Freshman Will Icahn claimed his second victory in as many nights and won the 200 breaststroke within 2 minutes. Texas capped the event by winning the 400 freestyle relay in a time of 2 minutes and 51 seconds in NCAA automatic qualifying cut. Also, for the women's, number 6 women's swimming team won their second straight Big 12 championship. The Longhorns claimed their win by scoring 1,109 points, with Kansas right behind them at 617 points. So you could basically say the swimming team had no competition. Freshman Tasia Carlos opened the final night, winning the Big 12 title in the 200 breaststroke by a personal best of 1 minute and 53.49 seconds. Junior Kelsey Neve collected 1650 freestyle along her 500 freestyle that she won 2 nights ago. She took the win with 16 minutes and 19.62 seconds. Texas sealed the night with a win in the 400 style relay in a time of 3 minutes and 15.7 seconds. Now, Texas men's track and field placed second in the Big 12 Indoor Championship. The 17-ranked Horns earned individual victories from sophomores Ryan Cruiser, Zach Benelneck, freshman senior Jay Gavins, and the 4x4 100 meters. But they fell short to Oklahoma State this weekend with a point differential less than 4 points. Next up for the Horns will be the NCAA Indoors Championship, where it will take place on March 14th and 15th in Albuquerque, New Mexico. When we come right back, we'll take a look at the rugby team, how they did this past weekend, and also take a look at what's to come in Longhorn sports. Stay tuned. Welcome back to College Press Box. We have a few more sports to talk about this week, but let's start with the rugby team. Texas team traveled up to Oklahoma to face OU. The Sooners shut out the Longhorns 39-0, which is the first loss for the season for the Longhorns, leaving them 4-1 overall. Oklahoma struck hard and struck fast, scoring for the first time in less than 5 minutes of play. Texas ended up playing defense for almost 70 minutes of the 80-minute game. At one point, they got within 10 meters of the try zone, but they couldn't convert. Well, let's hear from the coaches and players and what they had to say after the game.
Well, if you do this long enough, you have days like this. I think some of the guys were a little too amped up. Some of the guys didn't know what to expect. And obviously we didn't prepare them well enough to handle that adversity. So I think any game like this, it's not one on Saturday, it's one in the weeks leading up to it. And, you know, we lost it in the weeks leading up, so we're going to have to go and train harder, train better, and come back at them.
You know, you come out with a win, and you always kind of feel you played pretty well. We know a lot of things. We're a young team, you know, just like the Longhorns. There's a lot of things we have to work on. The highlight was our defense, you know, to get into this match, as tough of a match as it is every year, and to be able to keep them out of the try zone and off the point board was pretty important for us on our defensive stuff, our strategies there.
This weekend, the women's soccer team played a spring game against Montgomery Tech. Let's go out to Mike A. Myers for the highlights. You see the team getting ready for huddle up for the eyes of Texas in the beginning. 17-14 left in the first half. Ashpalel will go to Julia Dowd, but Whitney James would score the first one, as you see in the corner, as the play will come and go in for you. Julia Dowd will go in, gets the block, and they'll block it one more time for that, and then Texas would go in and get the goal, which will get Texas up the win. Get up the score. Texas 1-0. 30-82 left in the second. Number 27, Montgomery Tech will go in and get a score for Texas, which will lead this game 1-1. And then with 21-13 left in the second, Montgomery Tech's player number 17 will go on to win that game. Win that game for them 2-1. The women's golf team went on to New Orleans this past weekend to compete in the All-State Sugar Bowl. The Texas team ended the tournament in the best yet tie for 15th. The team was led by junior Bertrand Strauss, who ended 3 under par and who would rank individually in 17th. Freshmen Julia Beck and Laura Weinstein would also have a successful outings in finishing 58th and 74th respectively. The women's golf team will compete in the next Farmers Collegiate Invite March 3rd through the 25th. Since we won't have a show again for the next couple of lists, here's a list of games you should watch out for until we come back. Monday, March 3rd, we'll have the women's basketball going against number 18 Oklahoma State, 7 o'clock, which is occurring right now. Which is occurring. Tuesday, March 4th, baseball versus Valsparero at 6 p.m. You can watch that on Longhorn Network. Wednesday, March 5th, men's basketball will go against TCU, 7 p.m. And Thursday, March 6th, softball versus Houston, 7:30 in Fullerton, California. Friday, March 7th, baseball will go play against Hawaii on Longhorn Longhorn Network, 6 p.m. Softball versus Arizona State, 12 p.m. in Fullerton, California. Saturday, March 8th, baseball will play against Hawaii, 1 p.m. on Longhorn Network. Men's basketball will play against Texas Tech at 3 p.m. and that will be played on ESPN News if anybody can catch that. Saturday, March 8th, softball versus Michigan, 12 p.m. Softball versus Washington at 10 p.m. Saturday, March 8th, and through Monday, March 10th, women's basketball will have the Big 12 tournament. Stay tuned on Fox Sports to watch the latest on that tournament. And Wednesday, March 12th through the 15th is the men's basketball Big 12 tournament. Catch that as well. Then on Tuesday, March 11th, baseball will play at Texas State, 6:30 p.m. Softball at North Texas will play 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. Friday, March 14th, baseball will play against Kansas on Longhorn Network at 6 p.m. Saturday, March 15th, baseball will play against Kansas at 1 p.m. and softball will play Iowa State 4 p.m. Catch both of those games on Longhorn Network. And on Sunday, March 16th, baseball will play against Kansas at 1, softball versus Iowa at 4 p.m. Again, catch both of those games on Longhorn Network. Thanks for tuning in another episode of College Press Box. You can follow us on Twitter at College Press Box. For some of the best sports debates around the 40 acres, you can tune in to our sister show, College Crossfire, Wednesday nights at 9:30 p.m. And you can also follow them on Twitter at College Xfire. For all of us from Mass Control, the camera crew, our analysts, Jeff Barker, Alex Wilkins, Reese Miller, and Jordan Camlin, I'm your host, Julien Owens, and have a good night.